Hello, sorry for the delays. I kind of got stuck. My iPad will not do Facebook Live, so I had to switch over to my iPhone at the last minute. Hi, welcome to Stephen's Kitchen. I'm going to make for you sausage and cheese biscuits. Made them up myself a few weeks ago. We decided that we just absolutely loved them. And what I want to do is put together, I want to make a bunch of them and then put them in the freezer. So on those mornings that I need to really quick and go, I can just go ahead, pull one out of the freezer, microwave it. Okay? Really easy. Cup and a half of flour. Cup and a half of flour. 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Don't use baking soda, you'll really screw yourself up. And a teaspoon of kosher salt. What I like to do once I've got my dry ingredients in is stir them up a little bit so that they're all mixed. So I'm not sifting flour or anything, I'm just taking a whisk, making sure it's all blended together. I don't know about you. Recipe calls for a stick of butter that's been cubed into like 1/4 inch cubes. Now every time I've done this, I've had nothing but a big mess. Have you ever tried to cut a stick of butter up into cubes? So what I've come up with, I will turn that camera in just a moment. What I've come up with, take my cube out and stick it on the counter. Let me turn this a little bit so you can see better. There. I'm going to take a spoonful of my flour mixture and sprinkle it across the top of the butter. Now what I can do is just take a baker's, bench scraper, and I can chop that butter up in little pieces. And even the piece that fell in the sink. I'm going to take another spoonful, again sprinkle it across the butter. What's happening is this flour mixture is keeping all the butter from sticking back together again after it's cut. And it goes so quickly. I used to spend so much time just trying to cut butter up into little pieces, and it's a mess. So this works really well for just chopping it all up. So I'm just going to get those little pieces, then we'll be ready to go. Now this is a basic biscuit recipe that I found that I like, and it works really well. I decided to add the sausage and cheese to it, and it was absolutely fantastic. You could also add cheese and garlic to it and make it a more savory dinner kind of biscuit. I like to play with my food. I may make it by the recipe as it's called for, as it's written once or twice, and then I start adding and playing with it and doing it the way I like it. Okay. You can see pretty much all the butter is broken up now into little pieces. I can add that to my flour mixture. And again, love a good bench scraper. And they're less than 10 bucks, so you can pick these up just about any place. They're not expensive and they're so handy to have. Okay. Now I'm going to take my pastry. Oh, good grief. What do you call it? A pastry thing. Pastry cutter. And I'm just going to work that butter in all over. Until it's like pea size, all broken up and covered with flour. Now I realized too, after making this with the sausage and stuff, if you make the full biscuit recipe, add your milk and everything to it, and then try to add something to it, it's not quite the same. So what I do, once I've mixed my dry ingredients, now I'm going to add my sausage and cheese to it. Another minute on the flour. What that does, adding your sausage and cheese before you add your milk, helps all the little pieces to coat with flour, so the flour and the sausage and cheese are more incorporated with it and a part of the biscuit. If you just try to mix it into the full batter when the batter's done, it's not quite the same. It doesn't mix as well, it doesn't hold up as well. I will be taking questions in just a few minutes here. I want to get these in the oven. I've preheated the oven at 400. Now here's my sausage that I browned up earlier, a half a pound. Whatever you like. If you like mild sausage, sage, hot sausage, whatever you like. So I'm adding my sausage to it. Like I say, it's been browned and cooled off in the refrigerator. The important thing is, because you've got this butter in here, the little butter bits are what's going to make these biscuits flaky. So you want to make sure your butter is cold. You want to make sure your sausage is cold, because you don't want warm sausage melting all that butter before it gets in the oven. My oven's hot. I'm going to say a cup of cheddar cheese. That's about a cup. Like I say, play with your food. Decide what you like and what you don't like in a recipe, if you want more cheese and less sausage, or however you want to break it up. I'm just going to mix this up now. These biscuits are really good. One morning I just didn't feel like really making a whole big breakfast. It was on a weekend. I made these biscuits and we just had biscuits and coffee for breakfast, and that was more than enough. Okay, everything's coated. If you're just making plain biscuits, you're not adding anything to it, you want to use about 3/4 of a cup of milk. If you're adding biscuits, or if you're adding sausage, cheese, anything to it, then you want to add not a full cup of milk, but closer to a full cup of milk. Like halfway between 3/4 and a cup. And this mixes up really nicely. The milk is just going to help it all come together. You don't want it really dry, because then you're going to get a biscuit that's going to tend to fall apart a little bit more. You don't want it really. If you lean more on the wet side, you're going to end up with more of a dense biscuit, almost cake-like. But again, it's something you just got to play with. Now this is the consistency that I like. It's wet. Oops! It's wet, it's holding together, but it's not soupy. Okay? So, I have a cast iron biscuit pan that I preheated my cast iron pan in the oven while the oven was preheated, so it's nice and warm. There's my pan. I never wash this. I never rinse it out, anything. What I do is, once it comes out of the oven hot, I take, it's probably less than a teaspoon that I actually end up using. I take a brush and a little bit of shortening, whatever brand you use. You're going to need shortening for seasoning your cast iron as well. And I just wipe each one of these little wells with a little bit of oil. You just want to make it wet with the oil. I'm telling you, cast iron is non-stick if you do it right. And you take some practice and time with doing it. So there that is. That little bit of oil is going to make all the difference in the world. Shortening, excuse me. Then I'm just going to divide it up. This pan makes 7 biscuits. If you don't have a cast iron pan, use a cookie sheet. It will still work. Just fill up. Like I said, this only makes 7. I made a batch this morning that we had for breakfast. I'll show you what's left of those in a moment. They were getting eaten up pretty quick, and I'm like, I need a couple for later. So you try to divide it as evenly as you can. If some are bigger than others, then you get the big ones. You still share nice and everything, but you get to eat the big biscuits. You cooked them, so you get to plate them up. No, I don't say the big one's just for me. You get big ones too. 20 minutes in a 400-degree oven. And my timer's set. These are what they're going to end up looking like. Can you see that? Look at that. And these are cold now because they've been sitting on my counter. But when they are warm, you can see the sausage in there, you can see the cheese in there. When they're warm and you break them apart, the cheese actually stretches through. And you can see the cheese just pulling. Okay? A couple people had asked about seasoning cast iron and cleaning cast iron. So I want to answer some of those questions and give you a little bit of background on that first while these are cooking up. First of all, you can go out at any big box store and buy all the cast iron you want to. That's nice. That's not as special to me. I like going to the resale shops and antique stores and looking, cast iron hunting to look and see what I can find. This is one of the first things I found. It is an Ebbelskipper, or a Swedish pancake pan. This is the Ebbelskipper. I do have a Swedish pan. This I found at a resale shop. I don't want to be using people's names. Found at a resale shop for $3. Okay? $3 for a nice heavy pan. I don't make these often, but we will make them on the show sometimes because I see a lot of postings. People think that this is a poached egg pan. You are not going to be able to poach an egg in here. It's solid. You will burn it. And I don't think these wells are quite big enough for a whole egg. Okay? So we'll make pancakes with this sometime. Another pan I got, this is the Swedish pancake pan. This is special because, I don't know if you can see it or not, it's a Griswold, okay? Griswold quit making pans quite a few years ago. These are real collectors. Yeah, real quick, Sylvia, yes, they reheat. It's better to have them warm and microwave them. So these are the ones, Griswold, they're real collector's editions. This one I got at the resale for $4.99. Went online, looked around, it's worth about 70 bucks. The resale shops don't always know what they're dealing with. Most of my cast iron was my dad's. This is a real nice casserole pan that I got from my dad after he had passed. It's a Lodge, it's not real new, but it was my dad's, so it means a lot. And I've made all kinds of casseroles in this. The nice thing when you use cast iron, the best thing is you want to preheat it. You don't want to just throw food into a cast iron pan and throw it in the oven. Okay, because things will stick much more that way. So whenever I'm cooking cast iron in my oven, I want to make sure it's heated on the stovetop with food in it before it goes in the oven. Or I heat it up in the oven, and like I do with the biscuit pan, wipe a little bit of oil around it first, then put food in it. Then it doesn't stick. Okay? These you can see in most stores too. It's a griddle on one side and it's flat on the other side. I do pancakes in this a lot for the kids. The kids love it. This is one of my favorite pans. This is called a cowboy platter. I got this from an antique store. The interesting thing about this, you see these two lines? Those are called gate marks. The way they used to have cast iron is they made molds in the sand for the cast iron, and these came up into two V's. Okay? They poured the iron into it. It was cast into this. When it was all set, then they broke these V's off, creating two lines, or creating a single line on some of them. Anything that you find with a gate mark like this is usually made before 1900. So this pan right now is at least 116 years old, if not older. It's once they're gate marked, you can't really tell exactly how old they are. But I use this a lot in the oven. I've done pork loins on it. I've done Cornish hens on it. And the nice thing about your cast iron too, you can always use it on the grill outside on nice days. So I've done that too. Prepared things, heated them up in the oven or on the stove top, put put the food on it and then take it out and slip it in the grill so it'll cook. The other thing about cast iron, so the cleaning portion of it, if you get something used that you just find someplace and you want to give it a good cleaning first, you can load your oven up completely with all your old cast iron, stuff that you found, stuff that you've been given, stuff that you haven't used. Put it in the oven and put it through a cleaning cycle. The cleaning cycle on the oven, the self-cleaning cycle, is going to heat it up to very high temperatures. It won't damage the cast iron, and it's also, once everything is cool, it's gone through the cycle, it's all cooled down, any dirt or anything that you have is going to basically turn to ash and brush off. So once you got your clean cast iron, whether it's from, like I say, somebody gave it to you, you found it someplace, or you've had it for a long time and haven't used it. Once you've cleaned it, then you have to re-season. There's a whole lot of different ways for seasoning your cast iron you can go through, but the method I've been using that works really, really well for me is I will preheat my oven to 350, and I'll get my cast iron warm. Once it's warm, I'll take a little bit of that shortening again on a paper towel or on the brush and just put a light layer of oil all over it, front and back. You cover the whole cast iron side. Then you put it face down in the oven. And I've had that thing overloaded with cast iron before. Put it in the oven for 45 minutes at 350 degrees. And once you've gotten through your 350 degrees, then you want to pull it out, oil the whole thing again, put it in for 45 minutes at 400. Okay? Then you're going to pull it out for a third time, because there's 3 steps to this. 350, 400, and 450. When you pull it out after 400, you're going to oil it one more time. Both sides, cover the whole thing up. Again, face down in the oven, and you're going to let it go at 450 degrees for 1 hour this time. So 45 minutes at 350, 45 minutes at 400, and an hour at 450. When that hour's up, just leave it in the oven until it cools off. There's no reason to pull the hot cast iron out of your oven and have that laying all over the place. Leave it in the oven, let it cool, you're all done. When you do pull it out, if you see any oil gathered anywhere, you want to wipe that off with a paper towel. You don't want to put any of your cast iron away while it still has oil left on it, because that's going to collect dust, that's going to make it dirty and gunky. Okay, you want to make sure there's a very thin layer. This is the pan that basically never leaves my stovetop. We cook in this just about every day. I still have a little bit of the sausage, greasy stuff in it, so I'm not going to show it to you right now. But you can easily, take this. Most meals that I make, I just rinse it off with some hot water when I'm done, wipe it with a paper towel, put it on the stove and heat it up. And once it's warm, wipe it with a paper towel again. Okay? If when I wipe it with a paper towel and it's dried out on the stove, if it still has that nice deep black shiny glaze on it, I just leave it there. Okay? I'm done with it. If I've rinsed it in water, wiped it out, and it looks more of like a metal-y look to it, not really, looks more like metal and that nice black sheen across it, then again I'll take a little bit of that Crisco and wipe it with the Crisco, and then you can turn it over on the burner, let it get hot that way, turn it off, and let it just sit there. And that'll put just a real refresher coat of oil in your pan so it works for you. Okay, couple questions. What do you got? No, you don't let it cool before you recoat, Ralph. You take it out of the oven, give it another coat, and put it right back in the oven again. So your oven and your pan are going to be hot for a couple hours. But it's hitting it while it's hot. You can use hot pads to pull your stuff out, or I got a couple of these for Christmas. These work really nice on your cast iron. They're silicone sleeves that fit over the handle so that you don't burn yourself. Okay? So real nice. These slip on and off. I have a couple of them. They come on sets on one of these big box online places. I don't want to mention anybody. I'll mention their names if they want to pay me, but this is for free, so I'm keeping some of those things secret. The other tool that I find to have really, really handy, this I also got online. This is a heat gun for measuring heat on surfaces. So if I'm frying chicken or French fries or doing anything on the stovetop where I want to know what temperature and be sure I'm keeping it at the right temperature, I will just shoot this in there in the pan and take the measurement of the temperature, and I know when my oil's hot enough. Other people take a wooden spoon and they'll get, and it's usually around 350 or so. Sometimes, like French fries, when I cook French fries, I cook them in 2 steps. I'll cook them at 350, and then I crank the oil up to about 400 and cook them again. That's what gives them crunchy on the outside and soft on the inside. Any other questions at the moment? Okay. These are really, oh, do they stick? I bought them and they say that they're pre-seasoned. What should I do? They will stick. Yeah, hi baby girl. I've never used any of the pre-seasoned stuff that comes out, but what I've heard from a couple cast iron groups that I'm at with online is that a lot of times people don't care if they say they're pre-seasoned or not. They'll go ahead and season them again themselves. They won't necessarily clean it all out first, but just over the layers that they've already got on there, they're going to go ahead and season them. Now these biscuits are good, like I say, throw them in the freezer, refrigerator, reheat them. That's why I'm kind of making 2 batches today, so that when I have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and run to work, I can throw it in the microwave, for 30 seconds or so and be on my way, and not have to eat just a banana on the way out the door. So they're really good for that. They're good if you serve it with a couple poached eggs or fried eggs or eggs, however you like them. Everybody loves sausage and eggs, and cheese and biscuits. So they're just a really quick to go in a small handful of food that you can take with you. The other thing that you can do, whether with these or if you make just the plain biscuits, is you can make a gravy with them. Would you like to see a quick gravy? Okay, because we've got 7 minutes before they come out of the oven. So I'm going to take my pan. I'm going to turn it up to a medium-high heat. On cast iron, you don't want to start cast iron out at a hot heat. You always want to start it at like a medium heat until it warms up. The thing is, if you start it too hot, everything's going to stick and burn, and you won't be able to turn the heat down fast enough. So always err on the lower side with your cast iron pans as far as heat goes. Okay? It retains the heat. Most things that I end up cooking on the stove, I'm doing over a low heat or a medium to low heat. Too hot just makes everything stick. Aw, thank you, Lisa. Lisa has visited me here in Maryland and had biscuits and gravy with me. So I've been working on my biscuits for a long time. So, like I say, with your cast iron pans, heat them up over a medium, and then you're going to end up taking it low. I'm not showing you the front, but this stuff, it's a really finely powdered flour, which works really great for any gravies or sauces that you want to do. So while my pan's heating up over here, it has my sausage drippings in it. And yes, I'm one of those people that has a jar in the refrigerator full of some of the bacon gold that I save from time to time. So once this is hot, I'm just going to sprinkle some of this magic flour across the top. I don't have measurements because I didn't take the oil out and measure it, but the pan itself is pretty much coated on the bottom with the oil. So again, I'm over medium heat right now. I want this to be a little high. I'm going to sprinkle some of this magic flour over the bottom. You want equal amounts of oil and the flour. So that's why if I've got a thin coat of oil on the bottom, I'm going to add a thin coat of that stuff over the top. Now I'm going to whisk this around in the pan. I want that flour to cook, so I want it to be thick and brown. You can't really see it's starting to change colors a little bit. It's starting to get that little bit of brownish in there. But you want to make sure you don't want raw flour. Raw flour does not taste good. And like I say, I don't always make gravy, but once I learn to make it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so quick and easy. Pardon me, I had to grab milk. So my pan is hot, my flour has cooked. I'm going to add just about like a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of milk. I want this to cook up and thicken a little bit. I want to make sure all the flour is getting scraped off the bottom of the pan. I'm also going to add a little bit of kosher salt. See, kosher salt. And pepper. Pretend that was freshly ground pepper, not that kind. There, it's starting to thicken up nice. So I just keep trying to... I want that nice and hot before I add any other milk to it. So again, probably another half a cup to 3/4 of a cup. Put it back in the fridge. If I was making a lot of gravy for a lot of people, then I probably would have added butter to this, like a couple tablespoons of butter, and then a couple tablespoons of the magic flour. Because you have to have, you want the same amounts of oil and oil, butter, fat, and flour. Those need to be in equal amounts. And you can add the milk to it for whatever. I don't have specific amounts, I'm sorry. You just kind of feel your way through it. So the more butter and flour, the more milk you can add. And again, keep stirring. You want this to come up to a simmer again, and then it's going to start thickening up even more. Now if I was making plain biscuits, and not the sausage cheese biscuits, I would throw the sausage in here. We got 2 minutes before they come out of the oven. Making gravy is a boring part for you to watch. I'm sorry. I could sing and dance while I do it. Maybe next time I'll take requests. Oh, sure, you're hungry. Come on over. Thanks, Janice. So again, you just want to keep simmering it and stirring it because you don't want anything to burn and you want it to get nice and thick. Next time I'll tattoo jokes on my shoulder so you can read jokes while I'm cooking. Or maybe I'll work out a better camera angle by then. There, it's thickening up nice. Somebody had requested pizza for next week. So that would be good, don't you think? We'll do cast iron pizza. The nice thing is I've got lots of pans that I can make pizza in, so I can swap them out so we don't have to sit and wait through the whole cooking process. But this is going real quick. There. So I've got my gravy now. And it's hot. And there's the timer. The biscuits are done. Wasn't that quick? I probably could have kept them in for just a couple more minutes, get them a little browner, but look at that. Aren't they pretty? So I'm just going to take a knife and go around them all to make sure they're all loose. That one's big. That one's mine. That one too. But like I said, look how easy these come out. That's it. And it's clean in there. I'll just wipe that out with a paper towel, put it back on the shelf after it's done, and we are all set. These biscuits just lift right out of that pan. So if you want, get a biscuit pan. Otherwise, like I say, you can put them on a cookie sheet. If you make these biscuits on a cookie sheet, and you make them smaller, they'll probably only take about 10 minutes. Cast iron does not scratch. I use all metal utensils in my cast iron and scrub the heck of it. The other thing you can use to clean for cast iron real quick, this is chain link. And if you got some stubborn food stuck in your cast iron, you can use this chain link and running water to scrub it. I usually end up using this on my grill that I use quite often, you know, in the little ridges. This gets down into those ridges and just pulls all the little pieces right off, okay? Let me see if we can see the cheese. Ooh, that's hot. You can kind of see the cheese on the inside of it. Because the cheese was coated with the flour like we did, it's holding the cheese more together in pieces of cheese rather than just totally breaking up. Any more questions? Okay. It's going to be pizza next week, next Saturday at noon. Join me for pizza and cast iron. Thank you so much. This is Stephen from my kitchen that I use for my family. Hopefully you will enjoy it as well. Hugs.